Well, hello and welcome to yet another special, exclusive, new episode of the Goblins and Growlers podcast with yours truly and summoned from the depths of the abyss, our favorite friend of the show, professional lawyer to the stars, Noah
What's
Downs.
up? Lawyer to the stars, specifically the sun. It's really hot right now.
Noah, I heard... No, that's fine. That was excellent, honestly.
Yeah.
I heard you just came back from Gen Con. Super jealous.
did.
I was watching through the extension of my monitor. And
Yeah.
I have been kind of probing you for more details about what's going on with Daggerheart. And because, viewers, listeners, if you're not already intimately aware of this, Noah and I do work together. He is my boss.
Hi. I was your friend first, so I call
He's
you.
my boss and my friend.
Yeah, what's up? I'm your lawyer friend. I'm your boss friend.
You're my lawyer boss friend. But
that's
this
too
kind
much.
of this kind of came like at a timely nexus because I was
Mm-hmm.
actually working on an open license at the same time as you discussing the community gaming license with our friend Ted over on Nerd Immersion. I know that was such a great episode, and listeners, viewers, if you want to know all the ins and outs, like the real crunch behind why open gaming licenses are structured the way they are, I highly suggest you check out Ted's most recent episode with Noah on it. I'm going to link it in the show notes below, but they go into a lot of depth as to why you would choose one strategy or the other, and that's great for us because that means we can get to the fun stuff, like talking about the changes.
Yeah, which is what I'm excited to talk about. You know, like in a like to focusing on the CGL and all that stuff, but also, you know, overall what it means, what it does, etc. So yeah, no, I'm glad to be back.
So at Gen Con, I know that there were a lot of updates. Particularly, we saw a couple of new writers on the team, perhaps some new creative directors on the team.
Yeah, like you talking about like Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford.
And Crawford, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I had a chance to get dinner with both of them, and you know, we were, you know, it's a larger dinner, so we were talking about it. And they're very excited, and they feel like they've hit the ground running, which is really cool. And there's so much to explore. They're already like fully up to speed and already building in the world. So it's really fun to talk to them about the future of Daggerheart as a system, and also they're just incredibly thrilled, I would say, to work on it, and seeing that kind of enthusiasm, which matches the enthusiasm of the rest of the Daggerheart team. I love the entire team. Had some time to really hang out with them. Seeing that enthusiasm, I just kind of know, like, you know, I'll start this entire episode by saying Daggerheart is a cool system. It's beautiful, and the people behind it are beautiful, and so I would say that it's going to be successful.
Yeah, I guess you've been working in this industry for a moment now. So looking at these kind of older industry veterans come in to help this newer property, it hasn't not been done before. But in the world of TTRPGs, this is kind of the first opportunity that we're seeing this relationship play out. I know that they weren't heavily invested in the initial launch of Daggerheart. That was all designed in-house by Critical Role, Darrington Press, and their creative teams, right?
Yeah, and they have some incredible minds that helped design the initial part of Daggerheart over the course of, I guess it was like 3 years that they worked on it or something like that. But you know, they pulled in, you know, Spencer and Rowan and Elise Resendez and all these people that have been working in the space. These really cool folks that, you know, kind of brought this out and brought this up and got it out into the world, and then to bring on Jeremy and Chris to kind of take what that incredible team built and then build on it is just really fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with their first campaign frame / setting. I know that that's going to be the big unifier with how they're going to try and like keep the property anchored to some kind of content.
Yeah.
And based off of their experience, I'm curious about how that's going to progress. Just the tactics.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. What's really interesting about it is, you know, we've always seen D&D as the monolith, and then everything kind of pops up around it, like, you know, wildflowers in the garden around the sunflower. You know what I mean? But Daggerheart feels like it's its own garden that it's trying to build out, and it feels like, you know, this industry has curated its people through D&D that now go out and work in other areas. And it feels like everybody's really playing well together, like Wizards and, Critical Role, etc. So it's really encouraging to see.
Yeah, it's certainly like the ethos shift is noticeable because especially when you look at kind of what Wizards is as a company with their kind of mechanics focus, crunch, like combat is the destination sort of gameplay. It's a different experience altogether to figure out how Daggerheart wants to approach these kind of tabletop adventures, right?
Yeah.
It's less mechanical and more narrative. I find that exciting, but it also, like, from a licensing perspective, gets a little tricky.
Yeah, it's being narrative forward. It interacts more with IP and less with game mechanics, and
Right.
so obviously Critical Role as an entity has had to fight for every single scrap of what it's ever obtained. Going from Legendary Media, getting out, doing their own stuff, making sure they retained ownership over their IP there, being accused of stealing characters that they clearly had no awareness of. Like, they really kind of, because they've been the biggest in the game, pun intended, so far, they have really kind of gone up against a lot of different legal challenges, and you can kind of see those legal challenges reflected in the community gaming license and the licenses that they've been working under. And that's part of the reason why their fan content policy is actually, generally regarded as more restrictive than Wizards of the Coast, because, on the legal perspective, you and I know that Wizards of the Coast has more resources, so they can go after and enforce their policies more,
Right.
Because they're a monolith owned by Hasbro, whereas Critical Role is large, but they're efficient, and so they need to make sure their resources being allocated appropriately.
Right. And in the drafting process, we did have a conversation about client maturity and at what stage of your development as a TTRPG publisher do you start yielding in certain directions. I would love to talk about in more depth when we eventually get to that, but just to tease it out a little bit longer.
Tease it a little bit longer. Yeah, exactly. That was good. Well done.
There was another update on stage, and it was that they were going to release a homebrew kit.
Yeah.
Previously, in your previous conversation, and just to kind of set the bar for everybody who hadn't listened to that, but is going to listen to the interview that you had with Ted, but to set the bar, what were your initial impressions of the CGL prior to his changes, and just very briefly, why CGL and not open?
Yeah, so my initial impression of the CGL is that it is reflective of the Daggerheart system being very young. It is, and that's not to say that it's an immature license. What that is to say is that it is a very mature license. It is well written to protect Critical Role's interest and to protect Darrington Press' interest, which makes perfect sense. There's this common misconception in the TTRPG world, especially since the OGL crisis of 22 and 23.
Yes, the great day that will live in histories of TTRPG adventurers everywhere.
The Great War. But there's been this common misconception that every license needs to be open, and that there's a right to an open licensing framework. And that's just not true. When you're investing so many resources and so much time into building a system, it should not be expected that the norm is going to be to create an open licensing system. A lot of people choose to do that, and there's a lot of pros and benefits to doing it. There's also reasons not to. I wouldn't necessarily advise all of our clients to engage in open licensing systems until they really know what they have under them. And so the community gaming license is not an open license. It's more like a beta testing agreement in that it is an invitation to play in the sandbox. But Daggerheart is barely 50 days old. And so they're not necessarily going to open the floodgates. If you think about it, D&D, was around since the 70s until it finally got an open gaming license in the 2000s. And so they had the benefit of 24, 25 years to really figure out what their property was before they opened it up. And so I'd give Daggerheart a little bit more time before anybody says, hey, this isn't open. Why is this not open?
I think one of the interesting distinctions about the TTRPG industry is that it kind of operates on a very moddable environment.
Yeah.
And if I was to use kind of a modern day corollary, I'd say this is equivalent to a video game studio who wants to have open community guidelines for people modding the game and creating reinterpretations and remixes of it, right? Because it benefits financially, commercially, from people picking up the core materials and creating a derivative of it and introducing other people to the hobby.
Yeah, exactly. It is something where the benefit is clearly there. But you do need to put restrictions on it, and so that you can still own your IP and still put it out into the world. And so, yeah, it makes perfect sense that it's not an open license. And I think some of the feedback, the clickbait that we've seen on the internet of it's not an open license, how this is going to destroy Daggerheart is false. And honestly, I bought into that when I first read through it. I was like, how dare they? It's not an open license. And then I thought about it and I was like, wait a second, what am I doing? And then, as counsel, I wouldn't necessarily, like I said, I wouldn't recommend that everybody open it up. So why should we expect them to?
Especially not for a studio that just got started or someone who doesn't have a lot of IP already developed, because there are risks there.
Yeah, exactly.
I did muse on a bit on revocability. I wonder if maybe we could just tangent for a second.
I think that's the key here.
That's the biggest contention with the OGL scandal. People were mostly irate that the products that they had made in the past would retroactively be banned or taxed or considered infringing or insert other negative status.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with the revocability of the CGL, essentially what it means is that the license can be revoked, but anything that you've published using the license will still be validly published under that original license. What essentially that means is you can't republish things or do new versions or updates, additions. What you've put out there would be stuck out there if the license is revoked.
Typos and all.
Typos and all. If you put Strahd in your original version, then you're screwed. DD. So the revocability there, there's the reason that's potentially a problem. If you're coming at this from an open licensing framework viewpoint, is there's a chance this license won't be there. And if you rely on it, if you build in the sandbox, invest tons of time and resources into building under this, then if the license can be taken away from you, then there's a chance you could lose that base. And also, if the license is revoked and replaced by a license that is more onerous or involves a royalty or something like that, then you are stuck either trying to decide, okay, am I done building in Daggerheart? Are the things that I put out just in whatever form they are forever? Or am I going to accept this new license and the new terms? And that's the distinction that a lot of people are missing, is that whatever has been put out can stay out under the license in which it was put out there. But anything new or any updates has to be subject to a new license if there is one coming out. What I would like to see, and the answer for this might be out there, and you could probably tell me if you know the answer to this, is Daggerheart, is Darrington Press relying on the community to save a version of the license that was available when they published, or are they keeping an archive of changes?
I was able to find an archive version, but that effectively was the solution that I came to when I was doing my own drafting. It's like, well, okay, if this needs to be revocable, but not irrevocable.
Right. It's revocable to an extent, yeah.
Right. If the terms are out there and someone plays by those terms and they create a product and they commercialize it and then those terms change 3 years from then, but that product was built underneath the terms 3 years prior, then I should say that it's fair that that person who created that product with the knowledge of the license at that time should proceed with the commercial benefit, right? But if, the TTRPG company goes back and says, hey guys, actually what you're doing through VTTs isn't cool. So new license, and also if you're going to continue to commercialize through VTTs, then you can't do that because that runs afoul of this license. That grandfathered nature is still another sticky situation, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting. And the thing is, how do you prove what the old license was unless you have a copy, unless you
Or
saved it?
continued use
Yeah,
under a new version. Yeah.
update this bug fixes. I mean, that's the thing is if you're working with a VTT, obviously the VTT they update their software all the time, and so their
Hmm.
dev kits and their access might change, meaning you might have to update your product. And so the question becomes, if you publish on a VTT using one version of the CGL, and the VTT's just basic access stuff updates, are you screwed? And the question is maybe. That is all to say, though, that so far we haven't seen Darrington indicate that they're going to be squirrely with this,
Hmm.
which is good. Obviously, if they'd indicated they were going to be squirrely, then I think that this would be a much more urgent podcast.
To be fair to them, they seem to be putting a lot of attention and time into getting this right. I think they know, as well as anyone drafting in the TTRPG space, that public perception is a big factor in what the legalese is going to ultimately look like. Because you get one angry Reddit comment, and then you have to go back and amend something that was not that you couldn't go amend in the first place, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is I also think that some of the changes to the release language might make this worse in
Oh yeah.
areas.
Okay, I'm seeing what you mean. Release of infringement claims, Section
Yeah, so
5.
this is the section where a lot of people have, and rightly so, called out that in the wrong hands this is ripe for abuse, but currently the people at Daggerheart are the right hand, so I'm not as concerned about it. But in the event of a change in control, obviously that's a concern there. But the release of infringement claims, essentially, the original version said, "Hey, if we accidentally copy your stuff, unless I made an identical product." Then you're not going to sue us for that.
Hmm.
This directly comes out of the claim from the community that character on Critical Role was identical to a character, a fan made character, in another RPG show. I think that's the case. So it's a direct response to that. I understand why they put it in there.
Oh, interesting. Right, yeah.
However, if you look at the original language here, it does kind of create the opportunity if someone did want to be squirrely. The change to this language here, now it says you waive and release any and all claims, demands, or causes of action, except to the extent that it was copied in its entirety and without modification. Whereas before it says it copied your content identically. Identically is a much smaller window to hit
Yeah,
because you can hit
right.
a part of it. Whereas in its entirety and without modification, that means that in theory, they could say, "Hey, we're going to copy this."
This new language sounds like a carve out for people stealing influencers' contents on TikTok and then putting that like little line bar across
Yeah.
it to modify it, right?
No copyright intended. Yeah, exactly. And so that's the thing is like, I don't know that this change clarifies or makes this necessarily better. I know that this is a part that they're trying to address. So again, I'm
Right.
not going to assign ill intent to it. But I do want to be clear that like, hey, that's not better. You know what I mean?
Public's reaction to not having a right to sue the company for deliberate knockoffs of their own work is a legitimate claim. But for the benefit of people who maybe don't understand where this benefits the production company, how are they protecting themselves in this situation? I mean, you gave us an example with a character who had been emulated and they thought that that was standing to sue based off of the
Yeah.
similarity between the characters. But considering all of the elements here, in addition to Darrington Press and Critical Role being relatively new to managing this kind of system, what are the risks for them, for someone who is going to create compelling homebrew and take up that segment of the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So Darrington, is coming into the space in a world in which third-party content is incredibly prevalent. There's a lot of people out there tending their own gardens. And so when they're given the opportunity to work with a system, they're going to race to create the new hype product and to commercialize it. And because they want people to play, they want to chase the hotness, they want to do the new thing. And for the most part, Darrington appears to want to encourage them to do that. Say, hey, play in our sandbox, like I was saying earlier. The risk to Darrington without language like this, without this release of infringement claims, is that somebody will create something that Darrington was planning to release as part of a supplement down the road.
Sure, necromancer subclass. We'll just call it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so they've built, like Darrington has built and laid out the all the tools by which this can be created. And so somebody will say, "Oh, I'm going to create a necromancer," or I'm going to
yeah,
create
sure. Invert creates one and a pack of cards that you can combo with, right? Exactly. Just to go alongside it.
And then what Darrington doesn't want to do is being forbidden from releasing a necromancer subclass out there, because they're going to want to make sure that they're able to create holistic and valuable supplements so they can commercialize them. And so without this release language, they have to go out and do a minefield search, essentially. Mm-hmm. They have to take out their minesweeper and just kind of step forward and say, oh, did they create the, okay, how do we change this? And, et cetera. And I'm sure that upon launch, they have other products planned. And so they don't want to make sure that they're not opening a floodgate that allows other people to get rid of their bridges to future content.
Ideologically, do we think that they need the copying adaptive content in its entirety and without modification? Isn't identical enough here? Is there a situation wherein you can see someone creating homebrew that they would?
Yes. I could, for example,
copy identically.
Originally, it says copy identically, and the new language is copy in its entirety and without modification. I could see a world in which you can copy a small piece of something identically, but it's still a copying. Whereas this requires you to look at the holistic work, and without modification, meaning that you could. This is more of an an exclusionary paragraph as opposed to an inclusionary paragraph. Okay. So for on this, essentially, the bad action could be, oh yeah, we created the necromancer, but his nose is blue, so it's modified. As opposed to
his right hand is missing instead,
and he doesn't have his left eye. And so I would say that the identically is a much narrower. It opens up more concerns. That said, I do think there's a couple of ways that they could rewrite this language that would not be as concerning to end users. Essentially saying to the effect of, hey, we're going to independently publish materials. You're going to make your own materials. If you're working under our license, you're not going to sue us if we release our own materials. If you can demonstrate that our people directly copied your work, then you win the lawsuit. Sure. Right. And you and I know we've done this on behalf of our clients is, we literally just get the underlying Photoshop files and say, oh, did you put this base layer and then you sketched over it? Yeah. Okay. That's infringing. So I think that there's the legal system has ways to prove this stuff that are not expensive to a corporation, I'll say.
And for anyone out there who's making classes or subclasses that are fairly obvious and probably going to be incorporated at some later point in time, it's not like you would be restricted from continuing to make those.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, there's only so many different ways you can make your necromancer. There's only so many different ways you can make a witch. There's only so many different ways you can make a wizard. You know what I mean? And so while, there are large pools, it doesn't mean that you own that. You don't own the idea of a witch or a wizard or an necromancer. And so other people need to be able to iterate on it.
But maybe the cards that I make with the mechanical portions of it would be more tangible expressions of what I'm trying to protect.
Precisely, like because nobody's ever made witch-themed tarot cards before.
Tarots for witches? No.
Weird.
That doesn't sound right.
No. So, but yeah, no, I can see what this language does cause concern to people. It's kind of like it's tough to write with the community's eyes on you. And you and I both know that from our experience at the law firm is when you know that your legal is going to be exposed to the world and dissected under a microscope, it's really difficult to you get to a certain point where you're like, listen, we're not bad people, but we do need to protect ourselves and put in our toolbox ways to protect ourselves. And so that's where I go.
Yeah, certainly there are good things and bad things that are involved in a license, and there is a certain amount of pressure drafting for the audience. But I think as long as you exhibit that you're adaptive and responsive and you're trying to meet the same goal, normally problems can be solved a lot quicker that way. It is tricky when those terms live on the internet indefinitely. And you made a good point on Nerd Immersion that no contract was really meant to live indefinitely.
Right.
So I can certainly afford to give them some grace when it comes to the language and expression of this.
Yeah, that's the thing is anything on the internet ages poorly. There is nothing except I Can Ask Cheeseburger that has aged poorly. And even that, maybe it has. I don't know. But especially when it comes to contracts, the law is always going to change. And whenever we write a contract, we're writing it in as a snapshot of what the law is at that moment. We can't predict future stuff. We try, but we can't. And so it's always a snapshot in time, and if things change, we have to update it for the client.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of things that got updated here, we're also looking at an expansion of mediums, too, from virtual tabletops to more defined playtest materials, campaign frames, and live streaming got added as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you specifically about the virtual tabletops because they're maintaining a separate page for the whitelisted VTTs.
Yeah.
Which is curious. I mean, I've always wanted to have my own kind of portal, right, where I have all the third parties that we're currently using so I don't have to list them by name or even worse, vaguely by what they kind of sort of do. How do you like this approach that they've employed here? We're in 1.91.
It's really good drafting, I think, because it allows them to add or subtract depending on which VTT has paid them the most money, and paid for the license. You know what I mean?
Without having to amend this agreement, but there's still an exposure point here for the creator, right? Yep. If they're using one VTT over the other.
Yeah, because they have to pay attention, and if like one VTT loses, a license, then another VTT, then a creator creating on that VTT needs to be aware of it. And so I don't anticipate that happening. I anticipate that all VTTs will hopefully have a good lawyer that will give them good contracts so that they can't be easily revoked. But we only represent a few, not all of them. So.
And I'm sure if anyone's looking for legal representation, they can find you on the various socials at My Lawyer Friend, not My Lawyer Boss Friend. That's the social he uses for me.
That's right. No, I don't even use that for you. I say, you just call me Noah. You have my cell phone. Like, you've been to my house. You've
my lawyer,
child.
Noah. Boss friend to the stars.
Boss friend to the stars.
So.
I hate it. Oh, man.
You initially expressed some reservations about the CGL, but with all of its updates and thinking a little more practically, who should publish under the CGL right now? Or are we best off waiting until they figure out some of these other things?
Honestly, I think that anyone can publish under the CGL. I think if you were going to build an entire vertical of your business under it, that's a choice. I would say that the CGL is a good opportunity to test the waters of Daggerheart, see if it works for your business, see what kind of appetite there is out there for third-party content creators that their entire livelihood is, writing, publishing adventures, materials for those adventures, etc. If their entire livelihood is writing for D&D and they're seeing some waves towards Daggerheart, then that is it's an interesting opportunity, and this allows you to explore it, but I wouldn't build an entire vertical on it yet.
You're not a TTRPG library advisor, but are you about to suggest that they diversify their portfolios in case one system ranks supreme?
So it's kind of like having like investing in the stock market. I'm just kidding. Have you heard of crypto? Nice.
What's that?
No, I'm not. We're not talking about Web3
Botcoin?
today. Oh my god. Sorry, I can't.
You don't want to talk about self-sovereign identity management?
I was
But
about to,
Noah,
I was about to say Soulcoin because I thought that'd be really funny.
blockchain-enabled identity wallets, though.
Yeah.
Some
No. Okay. I'm leaving. No, just kidding. But that is all to say that I do think that diversifying your writing portfolio is really smart. And Daggerheart's offering you a way to do it now. And then as you figure out whether this works for you, if you are a professional third-party creator, reach out to Daggerheart too. Like, don't just rely on a license. See if you can get a more bespoke license that fits your interests and allows you to have a little bit better ground to work upon. But this is aimed more at the general community, which is why it's a community gaming license. And so I think that this allows people to skate in the ice rink without worry that it's going to melt under them.
I don't recall, but did they set a threshold when you need to start talking to them privately about?
They did not.
Okay, so commercialization is still fine. That's not like a trigger point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're free to commercialize into this,
Hell yeah.
and I think that people are. I encourage people to do so.
Yeah, I think it's really the only way that's going to grow the content librarian interest. But there is a pioneering cost to starting off with any new system, and that means if there are changes, then you're going to have to go back and update all the material that you just released. If there's a Daggerheart branded necromancer, that means that a lot of the people who previously bought your cards are probably going to go to the official rendering, unless you can somehow supplement it or cull the redundancies across the system.
It's a high risk, high reward. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you dive 10 toes in on Daggerheart and just go nuts, then you could become the leading Daggerheart writer or creator.
I do like it. I find it refreshing. I enjoy the narrative hooks that they're building into it. The resource management is a bit tricky to get a grasp of, but we all managed arrows and components and rations before, so I'm sure we'll get used to it.
We're seeing a lot more people adopt it for actual plays too, in live play and narrative play, and it's very narrative forward, which is so cool. Like obviously in the old D&D days, we've had to kind of build in our narrative moments because it's so combat focused and so mechanics focused. Whereas Daggerheart really allows you to kind of build around the role play of it all, candidly, it's a signature of one of the producers on Elise Resendez, who created the Session Zero system. And so focus on character is something that I think is a signature of this team. And it's really cool to see it reflected here.
Yeah, I did kind of want to dig into that a little bit more because we mentioned how it's a departure from the previous TTRPG standard, right, which was more of a fixation on mechanics.
Right.
When you're looking at something like this gaming license, normally we would expect that to protect the kind of statistical mechanical expressions underneath the boss monsters or the way spells are flavored, or maybe this extends to settings, events, characters, and certain orders of operations, right? Like if there was a cataclysm that happened in a certain realm, then by incorporating that would be part of the license. Do I have that? I have the right to that, right? Because fan content would be copyright, and even though lore would be considered copyright,
protectable,
for the purposes of the license, we would actually incorporate it with the rest of the mechanics and the other kind of crunch factor of the system.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So
my question is, without the crunch, how much of the other stuff is protected?
Without the crunch, more of it's protected, honestly, because that's what you have. Is obviously, D&D protects Forgotten Realms, et cetera, all their different settings. Daggerheart's going to be the same, except that they have more of a focus on the expressive elements in general. And so from the jump, there's going to be a larger body there that they need to work under. So I would say that what they put out is going to be where I'm really interested to see what additional content they're creating that they're going to want to protect by not putting it under the community gaming license.
Yeah.
Or if they're just going to take the tact of everything goes in the community gaming license, because there is the system reference document, SRD for D&D, and we don't necessarily have an analog for that here for Daggerheart. They do reference published content. They do reference prohibited content. So I'm interested to see what falls into each of those.
It looks like in 1.6 they put it into public game content where there is a system reference document reference. They also have an exhibit here at the back that has like a name mark list of things that are included in the CGL, which I think is smart to list it by property as opposed to linking to an SRD for each one, because that's going to become a bloated SRD if you're maintaining it singularly, and it's going to be a Squid Game if you're maintaining it independently.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is they use the SRD system to a certain extent, but I also think that they're going to be putting more than just the SRD, and they've referenced that here. So I am, what's the best way to put this? I think that they're going to go more towards an inclusive and open role. Of like putting more content in rather than holding more out, so to speak.
I agree. The entire Daggerheart system seems to be written in a way that it's modular so that anybody who's playing it can kind of mix and match and create their own thing out of it. It almost seems like the team is encouraging that kind of expression. And because of that, even with some of the more personally beneficial and restrictive terms, I can understand that they just don't want to get themselves in a position where they're telling someone no and then they get into illegal action because of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So if looking at this as a whole then, is there anything in the CGL that you would want to change specifically? Like you using your red pen and free legal advice, to which we cap at 30 minutes. But because this is a podcast, let's cut it down even shorter.
I'll be honest, I don't.
You kind of like it?
The CGL is 9 pages.
Yeah, it's pretty short.
And
what's your standard? What's your standard page count?
For a license like this, I try to aim for 5 to 6 if you're going to publicize it. I would narrow down section 5, which is the release of infringement claims, because it currently reads very litigious. Like, they're setting up their right to sue.
Yeah, it does sound like they're barking just through the language.
I would probably also work on the section 1.9.4, which is the live streaming video, audio, and podcast, because currently I do think that there are some definitions in it that aren't necessarily defined. But overall, I'd maybe try and tighten it down to 5 to 6 pages and a little less legalese, which is something you and I strive for in our documents. But overall, I don't have too many qualms or problems with it.
Not many scruples?
No.
I really change it to a share alike if given the opportunity?
Nah, screw that. Honestly, if you're going to do an open license, why not do Creative Commons? So,
some of the arguments for share alike, because I do want to, because this
talk about share alike. I know
it's relevant to me. When I was writing my own open license, I was looking at the corollaries. Right, there's wizards, obviously, and we look at them and we call them blasphemer for the event that happened so fresh in our history.
Yes,
and then we look at. We look at the response from Paizo and we call them, enlightened being, ancient one. Yes, give us the grace of your license structure so that we might all use it in the future. And to be honest, I was sold on that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted a licensing system that could be mutable, used between other types of TTRPG systems. Right. If there was another publisher that agreed with my terms and just wanted to use the same terms, we in business, baby. No more disputes.
Right. I think ShareAlike has a lot of. I don't hate ShareAlike. I don't hate ShareAlike. I just think most people don't understand it.
Okay.
I think the legalese behind ShareAlike is confusing, and the downstream effects are
horrendous.
Yes.
Yes.
Difficult for people who don't understand. If you don't have a lawyer review your share alike terms, then you're going to mess them up 5 times out of 10. And whereas the CC BY 4.0, which is just a Creative Commons Attribution License 4.0, much more simple to understand. It's like, hey, use it, attribute it, done. And so I think that is a much easier license for the public to understand. You got to understand, I'm coming from this from the perspective of everyone's going to ask us what this means. So I need to keep it simple for those people who don't ask us what it means and then think that they're Reddit lawyers. So yeah.
Creative Commons is pretty open and shut. You post it, you attribute the original source, you commercialize or non-commercialize. Easy, win-win. Share alike proponents will say that. Share alike is better because we have a chain of attribution, and any restrictions that you put on the content initially, those people in the chain have to play by those restrictions. So
a blockchain, if you will.
I mean, we could talk in crypto terms.
Let's
if you
not.
want, Noah.
Let's not.
All of our viewers will leave, but that's fine. I'll be satiated.
Yeah, of course you will. You can do that after I leave. How about that? You just talk into the void for a couple minutes and then sign off.
I do want to go a little bit into the void of madness of like why share alike isn't appropriate here, because just by way of hypothetical, if you were to produce a TTRPG system, okay, and we're going to say you can't use Vecna, he's off the table. Vecna, you can't use him. If you use him, you certainly can't commercialize him. All right? But we put him in there anyway. It's in our SRD. Vecna is there, but we have restrictions on how you can use him. Now every creator that goes through has to understand the restrictions imposed by you, first creator. And then if this is a derivative based off of the derivative that was made from the original, i.e., this is a creator that's making something created before him by another creator, then they would have to also follow the restrictions and non-commercial or otherwise reserved material or licensed to figure out what they could and could not include in that. Not only attributing the creator that they built from, but also the place where it originally came from.
Right.
Fast forward that 25 years.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's a literal nightmare. Like,
I tried so hard, Noah. I tried so hard to thread that needle.
Far, but you can't. That's the thing is
in the end, it didn't even matter.
In the end, it doesn't even matter. I'm so glad you picked up on that reference. Thank you. But that's the thing. That's the problem with share alike is, my opinion is you're either going to put your stuff in the world or don't. But if you put yourself out in the world and say people can use it, then let them use it. Don't tell them how they can use it. Because if you're putting something out there and saying, hey, go create, but don't create like this, then just do it yourself. You know what I mean? Like, you don't tell other people what they can and can't do with their own creativity, because at the end of the day, you're just going like, I'm not going to let you tell me what paintbrush to use. Because if you're going to say, hey, go paint this lighthouse, my lighthouse is going to have polka dots. And I don't care if you tell me that's not something I can do. I don't need this Hatteras ass lighthouse. So I would say that that's why I hate share alike. It's because I don't like, I inherently think that copyright as a whole is a problem. Not because it is bad for creators. Copyright's great for creators. But the reason we have copyright is because we inherently live in a capitalist hellscape. And when it comes to using our copyrights are there in order to protect ourselves from other people exploiting our creativity, which we are forced to self-exploit in order to make money and engage in capitalism. And so copyrights allow us as a weapon almost to enforce our rights against other people. It pits people against people in the commons. Whereas if copyright didn't exist and we weren't forced to exploit our creativity for personal and financial gain, then we could just put our work into the commons and have a communal artistic society as a whole. Which means that if we have a communal artistic society as a whole, then copyright doesn't need to exist, because then we can all build out on expressions. So that is why I'm trying to say with share alike goes against that entire ethos, because you're saying I'm going to put my work into the comments. And I'm going to allow you to play, but only the way that I tell you to. So you're not really putting in the comments.
And then I'll revoke it if you play it wrong. Or I'll have my third-party keeper arbitrator revoke it for me.
Or I'll stick my lawyer on you. And, yeah.
I often wonder why statutory damages are so high. It doesn't seem reasonable given the copying and transferring culture that we are in today. Granted, that's because copyright laws were written even before the OGL. Mm-hmm. So
I think my personal opinion on it is that statutory damages are so high because we live in a system that is based on credit scores. And so if you hit a certain threshold, they want to be able to ruin you. And so if your credit score is ruined because you're forced to declare bankruptcy because you lost a copyright case, then that is the worst thing that can happen to you as a human in the United States. And so that is why our copyright penalties are potentially so high, up to $150,000 per infringement, because the mouse wants to be able to delete you. And because everyone has
financially eviscerate you.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem proportional to the harm, though. I mean, I think we can both agree on that.
Yeah, it's completely the rise of it made more sense back when information wasn't so readily available and we didn't have the internet. But now that we're on the internet, copyright as penalties as it stands are punitive instead of rehabilitative, and they literally can delete people. There's my anti-capitalist soapbox for the day.
No, I agree with you. I think copyrights are restrictive and they go counter to what they were initially established to protect in the first place, which was creative expression and opening the marketplace of ideas.
Which is really funny stance for us to take because we're IP lawyers. So
well, we work within the system to exploit it to the benefit of our clients.
Exactly.
Right?
Let us exploit it for you.
If you think the system is working against you, well, then you just haven't found the right lawyer.
That's right. Premac Rogers Downs.
Oh my God, I hijacked my own show. No, we're Goblin right now. We're Goblin right now.
We're Goblin. Forgotten paths. Anyways.
Do you see this kind of structure being broadly adopted? I mean, Daggerheart's method for smaller indie solo creative publishing companies? No?
No, I don't, because one, I think most smaller indie dev solo creative publishing companies are going to go open licensing because of the initial feedback that Daggerheart got. I think that it is, obviously they can weather the storm of misinformation, but a solo or a small studio can't. And so it's easier and safer to either not address the licensing issue or to go in some sort of open licensing structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It does seem the best format, at least the less burdensome, less maintenance format for someone who's just starting out to go completely open with it. But I suppose it has its own risks too, like exposing content that you didn't necessarily want open. Right. And other things.
Yeah, well, that's user error. So in a perfect world, a license is not inherently a harmful thing. So it's only harmful when you apply to the context in which it exists.
So I guess we know what strategy you're going to take for the next open gaming license you make. But is there anything else you're working on that we can
that I can talk about?
That you can talk about?
Yeah, I'm writing a book, but I can't talk about it. And so, but yeah, if you want to find out anything that I'm doing, go over and check out Forgotten Paths. It's an amazing podcast. We are coming up on the end of campaign 2. We've got 162 episodes out. The first first campaign is an Amnesia campaign. The second campaign is not. And then we have 6 miniseries in between and a bunch of holiday episodes. You'll love it. And if you don't love it, just download it. Please, for the love of God. Our sponsors like it when you do.
Exploit the algorithm for Noah's benefit. And you can have a lawyer friend too. Although...
Yeah, if you download every episode, though, like if everyone listening to this downloads every episode, like it'll be a great day for us. I got one more thing to shill.
Yeah?
You might have seen, those of you watching the video, that I've got a toothpick. That's because I partner with Natural Pine Toothpicks.
G&G is not sponsored. Continue.
Yet. Natural Pine Toothpicks, use code LAW for 10% off.
Oh Oh my God, we cannot possibly be in your brand agreement for your advertising plugs. Or is it just based on like how often you do it? Just however many times you just plug the pit?
Oh yeah,
plug the
no,
pics?
I get paid per purchase. So, thank you for the platform. Thank you for the platform. I got more if you want. No, I'm just kidding.
No. That's quite all right. Thank you. We're entirely not sponsored, only by proxy.
Yep.
Well, listener, viewers, if you would like to check out Noah's other shills, he's been on other podcasts before. He has his other podcast too that he just plugged, and other things that he plugged without my entire full knowledge. But that's fine because we love him anyway, and it's been so great to talk to you through the OGL changes, really helping us figure out when the right time to get started on this Daggerheart train is. And it sounds like that time is now. So if anyone was waiting for the gun to start, consider the races beginning.
Mm-hmm. Keanu Reeves is firing away. So,
well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, let us know in the Discord, and we'll see you around the next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Oh, hello, listener, viewer. It was so great to have you for yet another GGP episode. We have a great time with the guests that we bring on, and even our hosts when they can come on in either their human, simulacrum, or virtual avatars. Because we do a lot of these now, and I don't want to regurgitate the tail end of the podcast each time, I'm having the magnanimity of forethought to pre-record these in advance. So with that redundancy, and without further ado, if you really liked this podcast, please go ahead and telephone, telegraph, and tell a friend about the Goblins and Growlers podcast. We have a Discord, so if you'd like to join that conversation, check out our bit.ly link down here below. That's bit.ly/Goblin Discord. If I don't mention any other links in this spread, you can shake our tree of links. That's linktree/Goblins and Growlers. If you, like me, would like to pester Brandon until the heat death of the universe, you can feel free to check out our goblinsandgrowlers.bigcartel.com. That's where we sell our physical products, and because Brandon is the only one who has to handle that, we can easily overwhelm him. Not my evil machinations, but the evil machinations of a GM altogether. Follow Quid Pro Roll on your podcatcher of choice. And if you want to get access to our deep dives, bonus content, morally gray and suspicious content, please feel free to check out our patreon.com/Goblins and Growlers for all of the exclusive benefits that $5 can buy. Last but not least, we have a Twitch channel. We have videos on that Twitch channel. At some point, one of us will take the mantle up again to start streaming things like games or what have you. If you have some kind of burning desire to see any of us on a Twitch channel, and it is reasonably lucrative for us to do so, believe you me, we'll be there. Check that out and more at twitch.tv/goblins_and_growlers. We apologize for the unconventional naming conventions, but since you're a goblin, you're probably used to it. Thanks. We'll catch you on the next one.